What's up, everybody? Rothstein here, Betting Public Sports Show. I'm your beloved host, Fame Rothstein, a.k.a. Michael Snackson. Today is Wednesday, January 14th, 2026. Please like and subscribe to the video. Leave comments. Share the channel. All right? I'm not trying to hold you too long. Just talk a little greasy here. Talk a little shit. I'm up, yes, the car lights is on. I'm up before the sunrise. First to hit the block. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna talk about something like about that in the next video. About Corey Holcomb and Anton Daniels. I saw that. I woke up and saw that. I was like, what the hell? And I got some thoughts. We're going to talk about that in the next video. But this first video, I'm a couple days late on it. Probably should have been talked about this. The Jacksonville reporter from Jacksonville News or whatever in the press conference with Liam, the Jacksonville coach. I forgot his name. Liam something. Yeah, now what she did was, she's an elder black lady, older than me. God willing, I'll be 50 in July. She's older than me. Probably, 5 years more older than me. I can just tell by her cadence, the way she's talking, the look, everything. She doesn't look old, but just the way she's carrying herself on other shows. Her name, I forget her name as well. But she is a longtime reporter for a local Jacksonville newspaper, probably like their local black newspaper, the Black People newspaper out there in Jacksonville. And she goes to the podium, or when it's there, because this is what happens in a press conference. Remember, this is why I'm talking about this. I used to do what she does. I did it for a major college university and a small college university, but I've done that. Beat reporter, you go to the press conferences and ask questions, blah, blah, blah. Write your story. And she just goes in there and just kind of like, hey, coach, hold your head up. I think you did well today. Y'all wasn't supposed to be this good. And y'all did even, y'all exceeded expectations. And, hold your head up. You did well. You're the person for this job. Blah, 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 woo, wop, woo. Complimentary. She doesn't ask a question. It's totally complimentary of the coach. Well, and the coach is sitting there, yes, ma'am, thank you very much, blah, 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 smiling, blah, whoop, whoop, wop. And, there's been a big to-do on social media about it over the last couple of days. A lot of traditional journalists, older guys and gals are like, that's unprofessional. You're not supposed to do that. Some people are trying to hurry up and get a story off, and you're up there doing that kind of thing, complimenting the coach and this, then you're being a fan instead of a journalist, and you're wasting everybody's time, and there are some people like, oh, what's wrong with being nice to people and showing some love and things of that nature. And I don't know. I'm just going to tell you this. The thing that shocked me is that, and the thing that's shocking a lot of people are all the black journalists, even Jemele Hill, your Michael Eaves, the Sports Center folks, but especially Jemele Hill. They kind of went out and went against this black woman and was like, oh, she can't be doing that type of thing and stuff like that. But then Jemele Hill found out who she was and realized she's a supporter of black news and whatnot. And so she was like, oh, we need to be, following her and, supporting her in her effort to keep black news alive, blah, blah, blah. Because that probably struck a heart with Jemele Hill. Because like when the clip is rolling, you don't see the woman's face. You just hear her voice. We can sit here and try to play coy all we want to. We can tell a black person and a white person on the phone. Unless they're in the deep south. Now there's some of them we can't really tell, but like New Orleans and shit. Like, okay, all right, But listen, so yeah, this is a slightly older than Jemele Hill black woman who's from Detroit, just like Jemele Hill. And so Jemele Hill, once she did a little deeper, dug a little deeper, she probably felt some way, and then she appeared to backtrack on X, Twitter, talking about by saying that we need to support that woman in that effort, and I'm very familiar with that as well. Old newspapers, old small newspapers, black newspapers, things like that. Yeah, I'm aware of that and familiar with that as well. The thing is that y'all not getting is that all these black people, because when I initially heard it, I was kind of salty, like, you can't do that. You can't do that in a news conference just because it just ain't professional. Ask your question and get up out of there. Ask your question or follow up if you have to, if you feel it's necessary, and get up out of there. So that lady doing that, yeah, it was very unprofessional, and she probably shouldn't have done that. However, this is new media. People do all types of uncustomary, unconventional things with these with this news. The only thing they doing that's customary. Only thing these new. That's what I'm saying. That's why I left corporate journalism, because I saw this coming. I mean, it was don't get it twisted. It was 20 years ago, but it was like, my boss was telling me about Yahoo Sports, and I'm sitting there like, the email people got a sports department, and I'm sitting there thinking like, yeah, all these guys with no ability is gonna be just like taking over the game because they'll do it for the cheap. Go up there and take $10 an hour for a job that should be paying $100 grand. But they're doing it for the cheap just to, be around the athletes and things like that. So, but I'm not saying that's what that woman did or anything like that. But again, I'm just telling you, like, I kind of saw this coming. This new media, they'll do anything, just whatever fits them. Whether it's on brand, as they say, or anything like that. They don't care about, candor and whatnot. But here's the thing that nobody's talking about I'm talking about with like a Jemele Hill, with myself, black media that are against what this woman's done. Because when they were on the come up, we had to make sure we were the most professional people you could ever be. And not do anything out of the line, so we can keep our gigs. We're corporate employee. You don't want to piss off a source or anything like that. It's kind of like what they said about Jackie Robinson becoming the first black baseball player. He had to, withstand the shit. So, because they didn't think nobody else could. Jemele Hill, myself definitely, maybe Jemele Hill, maybe Stan Everett, Michael Eaves, and, these guys, saw themselves with that. Like, I would have never done that. Because I was trained to be, the ultimate professional. Because on some level, yeah. Because I'm sure somebody kind of suggested it to them. If they didn't flat out tell them. I know somebody did me. You kind of representing your race there. Within this profession. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's the quiet part that nobody's talking about. Or maybe that's the loud part that nobody talks about. Maybe that's what it is. That's the loud part nobody's talking about. That's what they're reflecting on. Their come up through journalism. And with the things that they were told that they better not do. Things that things of that nature. That things that will ruin their career, being an unprofessional. Being a fan and things like that. Trust me, that's what if I were a betting man, I would bet my own money that that's what that's part of their rationale for that. But what do you think? You know, some of you guys, if you don't know journalism, so that's what I'm saying. Hold on, let me say that. That's another reason. Remember the Deontay Wilder thing? To this day, he was talking to Radio Raheem. You know, I never heard of him in traditional media, so I'll say internet media. Radio Raheem, and you know, the Deontay Wilder's talking something about, you know, his ancestors and whatnot like that. And so Radio Raheem asked him flat out, yeah, what do you mean? Can you declare that like a good journalist would? Hey, clarify. I'm giving you an out. Clarify this so I can print it. Deontay Wilder gets pissed. What do you mean? You know, them yo peoples too. They've been doing it to this day. To this day. Them yo peoples too. Just tells you. You don't understand how media works. Everybody got mad at Radio Raheem. It's like, no, he did his job. The follow-up to clarify what you're saying. That tells you that Deontay Wilder was grafted. He ain't natural. He ain't organic, because you ask Muhammad Ali to clarify something like that, he's gonna run for the next 20 minutes on talking. Deontay Wilder wanted to swell up on him, you know. But you know, I digressed a little bit there. But that's how media is supposed to do. Follow up on that question. Sometime in a live conversation, he might have to follow up. So, you know, that's just kind of how media works, in in a little bit, that aspect of it. So tell me, what do you think? Was that woman out in Jacksonville, was she out of line, or was she okay? If you were in media, would you do that? Let me know in the comments, and I'll holler back at you soon. Until then, peace.